Dudes to Dads is a podcast to help men understand and navigate the transition of being a single dude into a family man. How do we make sense of it all? Well, we probably won't be able to, but let's go ahead and have some fun trying. And we are back.
We are back.
I'm Jason Kreidman.
I'm Alan Bush.
And this is Dudes to Dads. Alan, how are you doing?
Great. Everything's good so far, so good.
Well, it's the beginning of the week.
Yes, and it may turn into craziness later.
Well, it's always exciting. As a dude, you never know what comes your way.
Yeah,
there's always you live the life of, like a celebrity in the fast lane.
Right. Sure.
Versus the dad who, I'm asleep by 9.
Yeah,
or,
tethered to these beings that are psychologically pulling from you. No, I'm only kidding. It's rewarding, I'm sure. And the dude life is sometimes a little lonely,
Yeah, well. So we have a very interesting topic today. Sometimes kids, I'm sure adults this happens to as well, but sometimes children don't act the way that you desire them to act.
Sure.
And sometimes it escalates to a level that is like nothing you've ever seen. And these are called tantrums.
Tantrums, yeah.
Now, I'm not sure your familiarity as a dude with a tantrum.
I've seen them. Cousins, friends,
kids,
adults too. Yeah, exactly. I've seen friends do that.
So this episode is 9 ways to diffuse a tantrum, or at least keep your sanity.
Yeah,
that's kind of the concept. So, while learning to avoid tantrums is a skill in itself, there's going to be times when it's simply unavoidable.
Sure.
As much as we'd love to avoid it. So here is our disclaimer. I've got a disclaimer for this. We are not doctors, nor are we licensed to provide advice.
Good disclaimer.
This is solely for entertainment purposes. So use any of these techniques at your own risk. And we can't be responsible for what happens during the tantrum or to your child later in life because of the way you handled the tantrum. Here's 6 ways to diffuse it. Okay?
Yeah.
Is it 6? Do I have 6? No, wait a second. I've got 9.
6? You got 9.
I've got 9 ways.
You've turned that 6 upside down. Yeah, it's now 9.
This is what happens when you don't drink enough stimulants. So here's the first one. Avoidance. Okay.
What do you mean avoidance? It's just avoidance.
So avoidance is not to say anything and just simply walk away.
Okay.
So let's give the scenario that you're in a store and your child is throwing a fit for candy, and they're 5 years old or whatever.
Yeah.
They're throwing a fit for candy. I want candy. Give me candy. More candy. I want candy. You simply can just walk away. You don't say anything. You just walk away.
Yeah.
Now, this can be difficult in public.
Sure.
Because, it could be dangerous if you walk away.
Right, yeah.
At home, it's a lot
creepy
easier.
Guy could be like, I can give you candy.
Yeah, at home, it's much easier. So as an example, you're sitting in the house and the child, let's say wants candy. I mean, either so, or wants a toy or whatever it is. And you simply can just choose to not say anything and walk away. It's just avoidance. You're avoiding the subject. You're not going to deal with it. You're not saying anything. You're not doing anything. You just avoid it.
Sure.
When a child doesn't have an audience, a tantrum isn't as effective and it's not as exciting.
Yeah.
So if a child is throwing a fit and all of a sudden its audience walks away, it's just not that exciting to throw a fit.
Yeah.
So I'm not even saying this does work.
Yeah.
It can work. It's not that, it's maybe for some it's not the best technique.
Sure.
But if you're in public, you might, and you decide to walk away, you're going to want to maybe keep an eye on them, And so this has happened where I recall, my child might have been in public or in like a store and I was just not happy with what was going on. They threw a fit and I simply just walked away and kind of just turned the corner like in the grocery store.
Yeah.
You turn down the aisle. Now, I'm not going to leave my kid there forever, but you want to see what they're doing and all of a sudden they stop and then they look up. And so they're doing it for that attention.
Sure.
That's not probably the ideal way to handle it, but it does sometimes work. And you can see like, all of a sudden, or they're going to get so freaked out that you just walked away that they'll run after you. The problem is that they run after you, they catch up to you, and then they freak out again.
Right.
So it doesn't work long term. It's a very short-term, immediate solution. Avoidance isn't going to work. However, in the home, it can work with a combination of other things, and that's what we'll talk about.
Okay.
So the second one, throw a tantrum with them. This one is very effective for me, at least. You might look as stupid as they do, but that's the point.
Right.
So it might be getting down on the floor, stomping your hands, pounding your fists. Show them how ridiculous they look.
Sure.
And the hope is that they realize maybe that's not a good look for me.
Yeah.
You know?
Do I look like that? It's like a mirror.
Right. So my kids, I've done this. In fact, I actually did this today. No, not kidding. I won't say which child, but one of my children kind of just like snapped and kind of stomped their feet a little bit and then like was like, I want it. And it was just like this weird tangent. And so I stomped my feet and like put my hands on my hips and like was like stomping, and they immediately laughed. Like they knew exactly okay, that was bad. Like, I mean, cause they're a little bit older now, they kind of recognize like that wasn't a great tantrum that I just threw. Like it's not going to be that effective. So I kind of have a tendency to make light of that kind of stuff and point it out.
And they laugh.
And they laughed because they knew exactly what it was. Now, sometimes if they're really upset, that's not going to work.
Right.
And it can actually make it worse.
Yeah, it's a sensitive issue.
Yeah. If you're not recognizing that they're upset and they're really, there's something that's making them upset, but that's different often than a tantrum.
Right.
The tantrums are behavior things that are typically to try to get attention, get something they want. That's much different than the child being really upset about a situation or something that happened or something like that.
Yeah.
So you got to kind of discern the two.
Yeah, exactly.
The third one is the mirror technique.
Yeah.
So
like I just said, a mirror.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the mirror is you just basically, instead of you get a mirror and you hold it up to them.
Yeah.
Or you bring them in front of the mirror.
Yeah.
So I've done that as well. Place the child in front of the mirror, you bring the mirror to them, let them see how they look when they're doing something like this. If they're actually flailing, it's not going to be easy to move them in the mirror.
Yeah, right.
But if you have a small mirror or you have something, it's easy to do that. They're going to show them it's not very effective, and that's not a good look either.
Yeah, it's literally self-reflecting.
Yeah, totally. So that one can work. 4, I call the Zen Master. Okay, that's the nickname of this one. This is the technique of just staying calm and Zen-like.
Yeah.
Okay. This is probably the hardest out of all of them.
Sure.
You take a few deep breaths and you quietly talk to your child. Mm-hmm. So you might say to them, is there something that you need right now? Mm-hmm. Or how can I help you? You're saying this in a very calm and relaxing voice.
Sure.
This, we talked, I think it was 2 episodes ago about them not breaking your serenity.
Right.
That's what this is.
Yeah.
This is, regardless of my child throwing a tantrum, I'm not going to get upset right now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be calm. I'm going to talk calm because I am calm.
Right.
And I'm going to take a bunch of breaths to be able to do that. Yeah. So the Zen Master is a good one. The fifth one, empathy. Mm-hmm. So this is my favorite out of all of them.
Sure.
Like the Zen Master, it requires you to be calm. Okay. The difference is that you might say something like, I can see that you're really mad, or you know what? That makes you really mad. You're just, acknowledging what's going on right now. So then they can feel heard. Or you can say, you know what? I see you really want this toy right now. Like you really, really want it. Mm. It's like you're talking to them in a manner that they immediately feel like you're listening. And what happens is sometimes, depending on how deep they are into the tantrum,
right,
is that they will sort of like, I have seen my children sort of back off for a second. Like, there's immediate connection if they can hear you over all that. And you often will get their attention, and then you can drop into the Zen master and ask them then those questions. So it's like using the empathy and then dropping into the Zen master. So basically you're staying calm, but you're first really acknowledging what's going on.
Yeah.
I think, that's probably the best scenario.
Yeah, I think people just want to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
In a lot of scenarios.
Yeah, if your child is flailing and they've already gotten to the point where they are flailing their arms and legs and stomping and screaming, whatever, that might not work.
Right, yeah. I understand that your arms and legs may hurt right now.
Right. And in those ones, like that's where the more drastic, like you throwing the tantrum or the mirror, like those are the more drastic. This one's not on here, but you could throw cold water on them. That's why I said these are disclaimers. These are entertainment only.
Right.
And make it cold water, not hot water.
No, not
That's
warm, tepid.
But no, cold. I don't think I've ever done that, but that would be fun.
That'd be kind of funny.
Splash the water in their face. Like, what are you doing? Isn't that a technique that like by some of the social or like motivational gurus, like you do something wrong and it's like, quiche, or you cat, you spray the cat.
Oh yeah,
you guys spray the cat.
I have a cat. Yeah, I had a squirt gun. I spray them. One of the things that you water your plants with.
Right. That works.
It does. It totally works. Get
if it works for cats, it works for kids. Right. That's my new slogan. The sixth one is distract them with an object. So bring out, and this works a little bit for the smaller kids. So like when the kids like, 2, 3, whatever, as they get older, like a shiny object's not going to distract them.
Right.
But basically you give them something to hold if that's like the situation. So while you do risk them throwing it back at you at that age, like they're getting crazy, and especially like let's say it's at dinner time or something like that, and then you give them something, they'll have a tendency to like throw it or get upset. So you got to be careful. But a lot of times it's because they want something, they want to grab onto something, or they're wanting to hold something that that they've seen. So if that's the case, providing them a substitute can help diffuse that.
Right.
And that's just, give him your keys, or you give, and that's a common thing. Like a kid will want a little bottle or, whatever, or a piece of food or whatever. And you can give them usually with some sort of shiny thing.
Right.
That's like, there was, I forget what there was this little giraffe that was so popular when my kids were, it was like, they can teeth with it, they can hold it, they can squeeze it, it makes noise. It like, there's like so many things, and everybody had this darn giraffe and they priced it ridiculous.
I'm sure, because everyone wanted it.
Yeah. So that was distracting them with an object. The seventh one is distracting them by doing something funny or crazy.
Yeah.
So that's the other kind of distracting.
Or you do a cartwheel.
So this could mean you talk in a funny voice. You could do your
Peter Griffin impression. Yeah. Hey, when you doing it?
I used to do Elmo or, something like that. You can make noises, or you just do something that, can cause a distraction. Oftentimes they, especially when they're young, they'll forget while they're having, they forget what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
They all of a sudden
they kind of move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
It's like,
dad's talking funny or being whatever. And, you're trying to distract them.
Yeah.
It's not a great long-term solution, but basically kind of same thing where it's something really quick that you want to do.
Right.
The eighth one, and I really like this one, is hug it out.
Hug it out.
So
hug it out.
You give them affection. Now, they may just want attention, and so you got to be careful with this one because you don't want them to do the tantrum in order to get the affection.
Right.
So while you're doing the hugging or the affection, you're probably then going to want to talk with them. And so that's basically, whether that's putting your hand on them just nicely, or it's literally giving them a hug. They often will just forget, or this whole thing is they just wanted the attention. So when they're really young, sometimes that's okay to just give them that attention.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that you don't want to reward them for that behavior. But it might just be they're throwing the tantrum because they really do need attention, and that's them communicating to you because they don't know how to communicate.
Right. Yeah. They're working it out.
Yeah. Themselves. And that's a different situation than a kid just wanting a toy.
Right.
But if a kid, a perfect example is you're on the phone. Kids love throwing tantrums while you're on the phone. So especially when it's important.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Dealing with client or whatever.
Yeah, they will like kind of try to distract you. And the bottom line is then you might have to put your arm on them or, hold their hand or do something to give them that affection so that they're fulfilled.
Yeah.
So that's a real thing. The kid, if, now there are some children that like doesn't seem to be, no matter how much you give. And I've seen that with my own kids, like even a day, or I think my wife has talked about that, where it's like, the whole day she'll spend with one of her children and like giving them affection and all that. And then later that night, they still want more. Like, it's like, I've been with you all day. I've been hugging and kissing you for hours and you still want more. And so that's
how good it is.
Right. No, totally. Like, I'm the same way.
Yeah, exactly.
That was great. Now, can we keep doing
Let's
it?
do it.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you just gave me hugs and kisses. I want more.
Yeah.
I understand it. It's like when something feels really nice, you want more.
Sure.
Of it. But since we got to be careful, there's like an overflow.
Right. You get too much.
And then the last one, of course, this makes the most sense too, is to understand the triggers.
Right.
So, the best way, of course, to diffuse the situation is to have it never happen. But like I said in the beginning, this is oftentimes unrealistic. So if you can understand and see the times that tantrums happen, that's then what parents try to do to then avoid them.
Right.
So I'll give you an example, transitions. And we've talked about this where, you're at a park and you say, okay, let's go. And a child then might throw the tantrum.
Right.
So the way to avoid that, and because, they've thrown tantrums every time, is you say, okay, we've got 5 minutes left. Okay, we got 3 minutes left. Okay, you got 1 minute left, and then giving them those warnings. Mm-hmm. So that's an easy way to avoid that hostility and that transition. Another one might be at bath time or at eating time, and by giving them choices, they might, I hate a bath, blah, 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 blah. What do you say? Hey, well, do you want to use your duck this time or do you want to use the frog,
Sure.
Or do you want this kind of soap or do you want that? Like giving them those choices and doing that, gets them participating in the process. Another big one is them getting dressed, kids when they're very young and trying to get them dressed. And so, as being a parent, the hardest thing, I know it's hard for me, is the patience.
Sure.
Somebody had just asked me recently, it's like, when your kids are difficult, what's the biggest thing? What's the best advice that you can give?
Yeah.
They asked this question. And I said, for me, the two things, one is patience, which I don't have a lot of. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
Patience is hard. And the second one's empathy.
Yeah.
Those are the two things for me that I recognize are the most important things of dealing with your children.
Right.
So if you can't, I see some people that are just, over and over, whether it's at the school or whatever, there's some moms I even see that's like, I can't believe how patient they are.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Dads have a tendency to be a little less patient.
Sure.
But just, seeing just calm and always there's one mom in particular I've seen and she has multiple kids and I always see she's so calm.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's drugs, it's like,
Right.
she really just is calm,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's the nature of the person.
Right.
And as a result, her kids behave and are fairly calm. They're rambunctious when they're in certain situations, but it's like, they're just calm.
Yeah.
The person's calm. So I think that's important is you understand those triggers. If you're able to be calm in those situations, and kind of think about it, it's like, okay, well, how can we avoid this by kind of thinking ahead?
Right.
So, those are 9 things. You obviously have to figure out what works best for you and your child. What you also want to look at is what you might be doing currently that's not working. Because the child continues to have the same behavior.
You got to try a different method.
That's obviously not working.
Sure.
But the reality is when they are 2 to 22, 2 to my
12.
kids aren't throwing really tantrums. And they're 6 and 8, so they're kind of past that.
Yeah.
They might. There's situations where they get upset, but I wouldn't even call them
it a
tantrums.
tantrum,
although the situation today was, but it's so small and it's so minor, and it's not.
Right.
So it's like
It was
from
diffused by something fun.
Yeah, from 2 to 5 is probably the biggest tantrum thing. And so the way that you handle that is important.
Yeah.
I don't agree with fear.
Right.
By punishment.
Yeah.
Hey, if you do that, that, you're going to get in trouble. Like, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
You're not teaching them to calm or to manage themselves other than like being fearful of what's going to happen to them.
Yeah.
If
give you something to cry about.
Right. It doesn't work.
Right.
It doesn't work. So you just got to figure out what works. Every child's different. Like what would work with my son might not work with my daughter.
Sure.
So you kind of have to figure that out. So, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, for sure. Makes sense.
What do people do if they have some feedback? What should they?
If you want to throw a tantrum, email us at podcast.
Show us videos. Send us videos of your
show
kids'
us a video
tantrums.
and explain. No, podcast at dudesanddads.com is the email. If you also want to get us on social media, Twitter at Dudes to Dads, Facebook is dudesanddads.com, and please go to iTunes and Stitcher and leave some 5-star reviews. And subscribe to our channels there. Also, we're on YouTube as well. And I think that's about all the social media
What would be
channels.
funny though? If you do take video of your kid having a tantrum. That would be awesome. And share that with us.
Oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah, send it to us and we'll tweet it out or put it out on Facebook.
Your kid will not like you for a little while.
I don't know. Do you have to sign a disclaimer by the child? Use their likeness? Yeah. You can't. Just block out their eyes.
I was going to say, you can put that black box over their eyes.
So with that, thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Another week. We then will see you next time.
See you next week.